I am so excited to put this system in. It's working great a couple weeks later now. And I'm going to go through some of the front end stuff just to sort of add in some commentary here before we get into the whole video. Number one, I took off the XREAS hydraulic system because this is a sport model, so I had to pull that out. It took about an hour and a half, not a big deal. And I've also taken out the front sway bar, and you're going to see, if I haven't already, I've actually secured the spindle assembly up into the tower mount there with a strap before I start undoing everything because I don't want it all to fall down. So those are some of the front end things that I did. And other than that, pretty simple and straightforward. We're just taking out the brackets for the ABS and brake lines and then just pulling that upper ball joint off and getting into removing that castle nut.
Every time it does that. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to undo that nut now. Castle nut. There we go. So we got this strap holding everything on. That's good so far.
So on the passenger side, there's like a compressor or AC line that you're going to have to undo to get that upper control arm bolt out. You got to pull it up through the engine compartment. On the driver's side, though, as you can see, there's a battery in the way, and there's also a little bracket underneath. So I go through taking the bracket out first, thinking that would work. Wasn't enough. Had to end up taking the battery out, so you're going to see that. There's a little bracket underneath there. Little 10mm bolt that you're going to have to undo. So I would recommend undoing the battery, taking that out, just get it out of the way, take out that little bracket, and then you got full access to that upper control arm bolt.
We're going to pull these little rubber flash guards off, just the top clips. I think I just used a pair of adjustable pliers on here and then went up to the top from inside and cranked on it from there. That seemed to work, so I'll try that again.
And you can see here why you really do need to take out that battery, because if you don't, you just can't get enough leverage and you can't move your ratchet enough to undo that upper control arm bolt. But getting the battery out of the way really allows you to torque that over, get some good leverage into it, and undo it with enough, turn each time that you're not taking forever to do it. So totally take the battery out, makes life so much easier. Easier on the passenger side for sure, because there's a lot more room, but you still have to worry about those compressor lines over there.
Okay, so this bolt is hand loose now. And I think the nut on the other end is attached to some vice grips. That's going to probably fall off in a second. Yeah, right now. Okay. Pull this bolt out. Upper control arm's probably going to pop out. There's a little hole up in the front there. The bolt goes into. Pretty good size. Don't need this washer. New ones came with the upper control arm. Upper control arm bolt. So I'll save that. We're going to need that later. Actually, I'm going to put it on the bolt. Okay, spindle's stabilized. Probably pop that right out. Other than this little bolt here for the brake line, don't need that. So we're gonna pull off the top cap bolts. There's 3 of them and they're 14mm. So I got a little, I should be able to get a socket on the top ones here, and in the back one I've got a little ratchet wrench. Now what we want to do to work well on the other side is Loosen these two bolts here, take them out. These lower ball joint bolts that are holding this wheel assembly on. And then we got to pull this lower control arm down, and I couldn't get it to move on the other side, even though I'd undone this. This just wasn't coming down at all. Had the bolt, the lower strut shock bolt off, and then when I loosened these lower control arm bolts here, one on either side and one over here as well on the other side, it just like popped off, so that was great. Just drop down and I was good to go. Come on.
Now you can mark the lower control arm cams. That's what we're working on there, just to, so you know the position that they were in on either side before you take them apart or loosen them. You're going to redo the alignment anyways after putting this in and install in, so it doesn't really matter. I would just, loosen them off, let it drop down. When I did the alignment, I just put them all back into a neutral position and then made most of the adjustments with the SPC upper control arm. Center nut and then the star adjustment, and that worked great. And then I just fine-tuned with the lower control arm cam, so that worked well. And I would suggest you do the same thing there as well, because it's super simple and not a difficult process.
Okay, so that strut's starting to come down, which is great.
As you can see, there is no comparison between these two shocks or coilovers. Dobinson's is so much bigger and heavier.
Okay, the coilover comes with this little rubber cap. I think it's just to protect it, the box during shipping, so I just pull that off. Got new nuts here, so obviously use those. Now I was watching a video and they said there's a little port on the bottom of the shock. I'll show you in a second. And they wanted to have that facing out right here. However, when I had that facing out, I couldn't line up the top bolts. So the way they've put these together, that has to go on the inside. So this looks like it's the same for this one as well. Okay. Get those nuts on there. So these are supposed to be 47 foot-pounds. And note that the screw here, or bolt, has a collar on this side, and on the other side we've got the washer in the nut. Lower control arm to the shock absorber is 101 foot-pounds. Okay. Lower control arm to the frame is 96 foot-pounds. I'm going to be changing those later as I do the alignment, but I'm just going to do it now. In case I forget. This is all secured, so now we can put these bolts back in here. So I'm going to lower the jack to drop the wheel height.
Well, unfortunately, the battery died on the GoPro, so I have no video of actually putting in the upper control arm. Super simple though. The package instructions give you great directions on how to put all the different pieces together there. You can see around the ball joint. Just goes back in the same way it came out, pretty simple. And in here I'm just articulating that upper ball joint back into the spindle to get that into place. And you see there's a little hole there. You're gonna have to put a cotter pin through there to get the castle nut up into it. So just push it through enough to get the threads down. And you're gonna get the castle nut. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And a cotter pin. Push that through. I think it's 45 foot-pounds is that thread, or that castle nut onto the upper ball joint thread. I'm just going to crank that up. I do it to 45 pounds and then see if the cotter pin fits in. If it doesn't, crank it a little bit more. You're going to see that on the video, and just keep turning it until you can get that cotter pin through the castle nut and out the other side and bend it into place to stop it from turning. Pretty simple.
And it says put 4 or 5 squirts of grease in the little zerk fitting here on the top of the ball joint. So do that as well. So 45. We are done here, so I'll grease that up later. And then obviously with the lower control arms, we're going to make some adjustments as I do the alignment and mess around with this. But I'll do another video on alignment, so let's get this battery back together. A little bracket that I need to put back in too. Put that in first. Okay, we have the other side done. Driver's side is complete. Gotta put the sway bar end link in, pop that up there. I just put the new one, Dobinsons in. These are adjustable, so I think I'll just start there. Gotta pop the pan bar back in, and then put this little clip in there. After I get that in, there's the bolt. But I will do that later, and pretty happy with that. I'm going to replace the bump stops. These are easy to get to, so I'll do that in a bit. And then here's the process that worked really well, because these are heavy duty springs. They're 19.5 inches long uncompressed, and they are way bigger than certainly the stock springs that are in there, and certainly a lot bigger than what most people are putting in. So I had to do some crazy stuff here to get it all opened up. And what I found that worked, take that strap, put it around the axle. So I'm going to take this bar off here, and I'm going to undo all these, I guess that's emergency brake, all those brackets that are holding this in, because when this starts to drop down to give me room to put the spring in, there's a lot of tension on here. I just noticed it on the other side. So I'm going to start with that, take that off first. Then I'm going to secure the axle. Then I'm going to take that top nut off here for the strut. And then I'm going to pop that bar off. And then I've got my hydraulic jack on the other side, my lift. And I'm just going to jack that other side up like I did on this side and create a lot of gap in there. And got my jack stands up as high as I can go there to get the body up as much as possible. I'm going to drop this right down to the floor, probably put a 2x4 under there to protect the housing. But I'm going to leave the shock in because I want the bottom of that strut or shock or whatever it's called to hit the wood and not the frame that it's resting in. So let's get at it. So I need my 12 millimeter to get the, I need an extension though. Okay, so the brake line's all nice and loose. I'm going to secure the back axle so it doesn't jam forward. When that bar comes out, I don't know what it's called, I'll figure it out. When that bar comes out, on the other side, the axle just shot forward. So that hydraulic fluid from the XREAS system. So I'm going to secure this. Just watch that there's no little wires that are brake lines around here. Go over that.
I didn't mention it before, but when I did the driver's side first, I tried the old bottle jack between the axle and the bump stop. Did not like the angles that was going at and all the force that was being generated. I just had this feeling that that bottle jack was going to fly out and take my face off. So I just devised this process here where we're taking that lower trailing arm lead bolt out. That opens it up. I got to pull the axle back, which I already went over, but that just allowed me to create a huge gap in the back and makes putting that big coil in a lot easier. So here I'm just grabbing a pair of channel lock pliers. I got my right hand and a pair of vice grips on my left. I'm just going to secure the tube on the rear strut to stop it from twisting when I'm cranking on that top nut that's on the rear strut. And there's not a lot of room up there. I've seen people take a Sawzall or an angle grinder and open up that metal piece. I just don't like cutting into the car that way if I don't have to. So I've just devised a way you'll see it as we go through the process of pressing up and down the strut and creating the space you need to get that in and tightening it up. Just jacking up the left wheel here. As you can see, it's dropping the right wheel down and giving me the space to pull that rear coil out. It just fell right out basically. There's hardly any pressure in it. It created so much room. So that spring should pop out. That's good. Yeah. Just that. Yeah, big difference here between the OEM coil on the left and the Dobinson's coil. You can see the Dobinson's coil here, well you can't see it, but it's 19.5 inches long, whereas the OEM coil is certainly not that long. So we're just measuring the gap that I've got now. It's 18.5 inches, and I'm just noticing that some brake lines back there are starting to get a little tight, so I'm just gonna undo a bracket. So as you're lowering things down on one side or raising them on the other and lowering the other side, just keep an eye out on what's going on in there and make sure you're not stretching anything out more than it should be. So if you did need to pull the bracket out just to create some, release some tension on any brake lines that are in there. So that was pretty simple and we just did that. And then just lowered it even more to create a bit that gap and pop that coil in.
Should be close. Jack this side up a bit more. This worked well on the other side, just hitting the higher jack.
Having these rock sliders that I made and welded onto the frame of the vehicle sure made jacking it up with this farm jack a lot easier, and super solid rock sliders there, moves the whole vehicle up and down. And just cranked it up a little bit, get a bit more clearance, reset that jack stand, and that just opened up the gap enough for me to open that coil up nicely.
Right there. Sweet. So just wiggled it in with the pigtail on that side, and then just turned it. Cool. We're going to save this bottom washer and bolt. It's 53 foot pounds as well as the top. So what I find is these are coming compressed. So what I want to do is put all the bushings on, so when I peel off that hanger, holding it all together, I can get it in quick and put it up top before it opens up too much, because it's not super fast. Shock absorber. Okay, so the order, this comes in your little Dobinson's kit. So this one goes on the bottom with the little collar on top, and so this one with the medium size hole, because this is the very top one that goes on the threaded thing. So this goes first, upside down, and then get the bushing with the lip on the top. And then this one goes up inside. That goes up because it's going to fit up inside here nicely. Okay. So then this goes upside down like that, or the collar goes up, fits on there. And I found if I press down with a piece of wood, it's a lot easier. Pop that hanger off. Here it is. Get it into spot quickly.
So this worked really well. Just lean on it. It takes a little bit of time for the strut to compress, but once you get it down, you can pull that hanger off there, the retainer, and then when you release the pressure, it's not going to jump out really quickly, so you've got some time to get it into place. You're going to put it on that lower strut mount, I found when I bent it backwards like that, it kind of stopped it from opening. So you just go back and forth, wiggle it up into the hole. And then the next step is to get all those bushings above it. There's very little room up there. So I ended up showing you a little process of compressing the coil.
Okay, so this wash bushing goes on top there. There is not much room up here. I'm gonna try and get that bar back in place. Pretty good. I just need to have another arm. Where's the right angle? I think I got the right position. Just putting the lower shock bolt wash ring. That's 53 foot-pounds. Where's my drill wrench? There it is. Okay. So plan here is to want to set this down, jack it up, compress it, drop the jack, and then pull this down enough to get the bushing in the nut on the collar and the nut on top. See if I can do all that without pinching my finger in there.
If you want to make life a whole lot easier, just cut out an opening above that strut mount top nut area there with a Sawzall or an angle grinder, and you'll have way more room. I just didn't want to do that, so I just wiggled things in there and got it done the way it was. And it seemed to work okay.
Now, I've got an 18 mil box wrench. So I'm just going to work on this. It's tedious, so you're not going to see all that. I'm going to press this down, press that a little bit, get the nut down a little farther down until I can get that wrench on it. And then once it's farther down, because it's going to squish right down when I get it to 53 pounds, then it's going to be a little easier to get the ratchet wrench on. And then down here, put this on later, because as you start to tighten this down at the very end, it starts to twist, and if you put your zip ties on here, you're going to twist the boot. So I'll show you that later. Okay, I'm going to get it, tightening that down, and I'll be back. I think we're done. So just crank that down, and pretty much you just go right to the end. I was watching this Dobinson's install video, and they say you just go right down to the end of the screws, and then 53 pounds is pretty tough. So I'm just cranking on it until it's starting to turn the tube, and then I'm good. Okay, so I gotta put that brake line bracket back in, then work on these sway bar links, put the zip ties on the boot and then torque these bolts here, both sides. Spec, I'm gonna figure out what those are. And I'll be back. Worked on the sway bars, not reaching, so I'm gonna jack it up on this side and see if I can't push that up towards the end link. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. Okay, so we are almost done.
Decided to add in these extended bump stops on each side in the back, and glad I did. They look and work great.
Okay, to the other side, and then get these brake lines brackets back on, and torque these bars, bolts, and then get that panhard bar back in there as well. Panhard bar back in, 96 pounds torque. Need to add in that little clip though.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching the video. We are back from Big Bend National Park. So I put the lift in a couple weeks ago now, and just got some updated stats here for the numbers. Before we did the lift, I checked everything out, and the back was about 35.25 inches. That's from the floor up to the bottom of the wheel there. And then the front was 32 7/8, so let's just say 33 inches. Right after I did the lift, I got about 4 inches or so on the back, 4.5, and on the front I got about 5 inches. And I was attributing that because I was expecting we're probably looking for like a 3-inch lift. But then I remember, we're going to be putting in some steel bumpers on the front, skid plates underneath. I got the roof rack up there. So we went with the heavy duty coils, especially in the back here. As you saw, a lot of effort going into put those suckers in. Before or as we were going through the install, and so that's holding things up an awful lot. So I'm pretty excited about having a 5-inch lift on this for sure. It looks awesome. And then I did the alignment myself because it's not rocket science. I'll try and get another video together for how we did the alignment, but it worked out really well. Drives amazing. Absolutely love it. It's stiff because we got the heavy duty shocks in there, but when we loaded a rooftop tent on there, bunch of gear as well on the roof, and then everything loaded up into the back for a few of us to go away for a week, it just drove so nice. So quickly, here's the after numbers. So before we had, as I mentioned, 35.25, 33 on the front, and then right after I did it, it's about 39 on the driver's side and 39.75 on the passenger side in the rear, and on the front it was 38 on the driver's side and 38.75 on the passenger side. So we've got a bit of a dip down on the driver's side. I can always put a spacer in there. I don't particularly care too much about it being super level. And then after our trip to Big Bend, it was 39 on the back and 39.75 on the passenger side in the back. And then on the front, 37.5 on the driver's side and 38 on the passenger side. So that's 5 inches, 4 5/8 of an inch on the driver's side and 5 1/8 of an inch on the passenger side increase from what we had before. So yeah, a little bit of a dip down on the driver's side. Anticipated, I guess. Fuel tanks over there. I think there's something to do with a panhard bar relocation that we can fix up. I think it's like an IBAC lift or something. I might put something like that on there and get that all sorted out. But just absolutely love this system. Worked so well off-roading in Big Bend. Here's all the stuff we had loaded in the car, rooftop tent, all the tools and gear and fuel canisters and water things, and didn't bring a ladder. I used that to get the rooftop tent on and off the car. Anyways, love the system. It went in really well. All the bushings leveled out nicely, and these sway bar end lengths are adjustable. I might lengthen those out a little bit more to give a little bit more play in the back end. Took off the front sway bar. I'm not sure if I mentioned that during the video. I don't think we talked about that, but I just took it right out, so we don't actually have a sway bar that would normally bolt in into the spindle here. Can you see that? Yeah, it would normally bolt in down there. And then also added on 1 1/4 inch wheel spacers to move the tire out a little bit from the upper control arm. And love the SPC upper control arms for dialing in the alignment. That worked out so well. You can adjust the caster with this top nut. It gets torqued down to 150 foot-pounds when you're done. And then this plate here actually rotates. There's a little, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little piece of metal, and it's got star grips on it, and you can adjust that, lift that off, turn this plate, and that changes the caster of the wheel set. So we just messed around with that and did the alignment. Again, I'll try and pop another video together for that, but amazing shock system. Suspension feels incredible, easy to adjust for the alignment with this, and could not be happier. So anyways, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you want to see some more of that stuff, you know, hit like and subscribe, and I'll keep you up to date on things that we're doing on the truck. Have a great day. Bye.